Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's up, Deluxe Man? I'm here to respond to your video about the man, Jim Ross. Without question, the greatest wrestling commentator to ever commentate a pro wrestling match. Now, some would argue that maybe Gordon Soley is better than Jim Ross, but I'm not here to debate those two. I'm here to talk about good old JR. Now, coming from a wrestling fan that has watched wrestling for well over 20 years, like myself, I can honestly say that I have heard Jim Ross for a good large chunk of his career. He started commentating in the UWF, I believe. My facts might be wrong, but I do believe that's where he got his start. And, anyways, he quickly went to the NWA, WCW. I can remember back, watching wrestling in the late 80s and listening to Jim Ross call a wrestling match. And I, I really believe that if it wasn't for Jim Ross, half of the matches that I saw as a kid and hell as an adult would probably not even be that good. Let's face it, Jim Ross has such a way, he has such a great way of calling matches that he can just make anything believable. Okay? He could take a match between a douche and a turd sandwich and make it a five-star classic just by his commentating. Because, I mean, he is that good. He can just take a wrestler and build him up so high, and make you a believer at home, while you're listening to the commentating and watching what's going on inside the ring. He makes you a believer. He makes you think that what's going on inside the match is real. He hasn't commentated that much as of late. You touched on the fact that, well, he commentated at the Raw 1000 show. Yes, he commentated that six-man match, and the match was like 4 or 5 minutes, and he only said like maybe a few choice words. But you best believe those few choice words was better than anything that anyone else sitting at that commentating table ever said in their whole commentating career. I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people hate Michael Cole. I happen to like Michael Cole. I think he's a great heel. Okay, that's the key word. He's a great heel. Doesn't mean he's a great commentator. He's just really good at getting under your skin, which is what a heel is all about. Here's my beef with him, though. Okay, he is the lead, quote unquote, lead commentator for the WWE brand now. It's like you're the lead, but yet you really, to be quite honest, and no offense to Michael Cole, he just can't call a wrestling match like Jim Ross. You know, I've always said that a great wrestling match consists of a couple of different things. Number one, the two wrestlers inside that squared circle. You got to have two great wrestlers to make a great match. Number two, you got to have great storytelling. And where do you get the great storytelling from? Well, yeah, you get it from the two individuals in the ring. You get that psychology, you get the emotion. But it's the commentator sitting outside watching the match that really tell the story. And Jim Ross was so great at being able to just break everything down and build everything back up. I mean, like I said, he could call a match between a broomstick and a mop and just make it a five-star instant classic. And there is no denying that Jim Ross is still relevant in today's wrestling. A lot of people gripe and say that, well, Jim Ross, he is old. He's been there. He's done that. He needs to go out to pasture, so to speak. Well, here's what I say. If you still got it, you still got it. It doesn't matter how old you are. And it's not like Jim Ross is a wrestler, for Christ's sakes. He just sits at a commentating table and he calls the matches. It doesn't matter how old you are when it comes to commentating. If you could still deliver the emotion, if you could still tell the story, if you can still get behind each and every match you call, then that's all that matters. And Jim Ross still has everything that it takes to be a great commentator. You're absolutely right, Deluxe Man. He will go down as, without question, the greatest commentator of all time. I don't think there will ever be anyone else that can even touch Jim Ross's career. They will never even be able to hold his jockstrap, so to speak. Because Jim Ross, there's just no other like him. And I can remember, as a kid, Sting has always been my favorite wrestler of all time. Some of you may or may not know that, but I remember watching a ton of Sting matches as a kid, and if it wasn't for Jim Ross, like I said before, it just wouldn't have been as good. Because his pure raw emotion that he evokes during each match is what made it so awesome and so believable. You say Jim Ross is no longer relevant, or Spaz Phoenix said that, not you, Deluxe Man, but people say that he's no longer relevant, that we are quote unquote privileged to have seen him at the Raw 1000th episode. Well, maybe so. But all I know is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Jim Ross never broke. Sure, he may have had a few health concerns over the past several years, but it did not disable him to where he could not call a match. I've seen him on NXT, I've seen him on FCW, and you're absolutely right. He can still fucking go on the commentating. He is still that damn good. And I don't think Jim Ross will ever, I don't think he will ever not be good. Because it's impossible. It's like riding a bike. Once you learn, it's hard to forget. And for anyone that says that Jim Ross is a has-been or needs to just go back out to pasture, fuck you. You obviously don't know who Jim Ross is, and you obviously need to get out your history book and read. Because Jim Ross, if it wasn't for him, a lot of the things we've seen in wrestling would not have been as good as they were. So I'm going to say this. Jim Ross is still relevant. I don't think there will ever be a day where he's not relevant. He still has the goods to deliver a great match. And without Jim Ross, well, I'm not going to say wrestling will never go back to how it was. I'm not going to say wrestling will never be good again. But it sure is different without him. And every time he makes that rare appearance, even if it's just calling one match, I feel good inside being able to see him. So, with that being said, I am done. Thank you for the video, Deluxe Man. I thought it was great. I wanted to add a little bit to what you have already said. You already delivered an excellent video about Jim Ross. He is the man. There is no question about it. And leave me your thoughts in the comments below. What are your favorite Jim Ross moments, memories, anything you want to share? The comments are below. Use the comments wisely. Let us know what's going on. What do you like about him? What do you dislike? Anyways, I'm goldizzy. Peace out.